Hi, I'm Galen Lawrence, and today I'll be talking about DNA banks. The fascinating topic of DNA banks has interesting ramifications for our future of forensics, biomedical research, and the overall privacy of individuals' information. I'd like to share with you information about what DNA banks are, what regulations are in existence currently, and how DNA banks are managed. The importance of DNA banks and DNA information in our world today and in our future simply cannot be dismissed. As citizens, we need to remain informed about what these important topics are. So what is a DNA bank? A DNA bank is a facility where genetic information of an individual can be stored long term. This can allow scientists to study treatments for disease or for law enforcement officials to capture criminals who have evaded justice or exonerate those who may have been convicted falsely of a crime. On April 20th, 1984, the world's first human DNA bank was created. It was located at the Indiana University School of Medicine, and at the time there were 55 samples stored at this location. Now, the Guinness World Record maintains that the largest DNA database in the world is the National DNA Index created by the FBI in 1994. As of 2016, this repository contained 12.2 million offender profiles, 2.6 million arrested profiles, 684,000 forensic profiles and pieces of crime scene evidence, and touted 285,447 assists in cases with this genetic information. All of these crimes were helped being solved by using genetic information that was stored in this DNA bank. So what kind of DNA banks are there? According to the Journal of Human Genetics, there are 4 kinds of DNA banks in the U.S. There's academically based, in laboratories and science for scientists who are studying disorders, commercially based for researchers and individuals. There's also state-based DNA forensic banks. These are intended to assist in violent crimes, and DNA banking by the military to assist in the identification of human remains. Now, much of the information online about DNA banks also includes that these repositories contain DNA from plants, animals, fungus, and microbes in an effort to conserve or protect species from extinction. So what are the current laws and regulations regarding DNA banks? There's a law that's called the Genetic Information Nondescript Act of 2008, which prohibits discrimination in healthcare coverage and employment based on genetic information. This is also a part of the HIPAA Acts, which protects the confidentiality of patients' individually identifiable health information. There are regulations that are doing some good to protect the rights and benefits of the genetic information for researchers. The National Human Genome Research Institute, in connection with the National Institute of Health, maintains a database of regulations that can be organized by state, so it's easy to find out what the regulations and rules are for your specific area. Now, one big question to consider: will DNA banks help curb crime? Check out this short video about this complex issue.
DNA analysis was a huge boom to forensic biology. However, it had certain problems that still existed prior, and that is, if you didn't have a suspect, it didn't solve the case.
In the first days of DNA testing, if we had a profile and the detectives did not have a suspect, we couldn't do anything with that profile. We couldn't compare it to anything else. Perhaps we could compare it to other cases if they were within our laboratory, but if a case was happening in another state or another city, we wouldn't know about it necessarily. So that is one of the reasons why the CODIS system, or the Combined DNA Index System, came about. It involved legislation from every state in America to build this CODIS system.
Now, again, this is a complex issue, but examining current trends in crime and DNA dragnets might shed some light on the usability of DNA to help solve crimes. Now, the UK has the oldest and the largest per capita and most inclusive national forensic database in the world. 7% of the United Kingdom's population are included in this DNA database. Violent crime rates have been significantly lower in the United Kingdom than in the United States. The first DNA dragnets took place in the UK, and this is where large amounts of DNA collection was done in a population or in an area to help solve a crime. Now, when this was done, it brought national attention to the role that DNA can play in criminal investigations. And since then, it's been done thousands of times all over the place. To take a look at this on a global scale, let's take a look at these maps. The map on the top of the screen, everything in orange here are countries that are performing DNA profiling of some sort. The countries in white does not use DNA profiling, and the countries in yellow, the status of whether they do or not is not really known. Similarly, on the bottom of the screen, the map, everything that's colored in purple, these countries have a national DNA database where they store the information that's collected from these DNA samples to be able to use it. And again, the countries in white do not have a DNA database, and the countries in yellow, the status there is unknown. So you can see when you're looking at a global map, worldwide, DNA collection and DNA profiling and DNA database collection is a huge thing worldwide, not just in the US, and again, not just in the UK, although it did start there. Now, according to an article in the Washington Post, in a study of more than 38,000 males in the United Kingdom who were arrested for crimes roughly equal in severity to felonies in the United States, the research team found that being added to this DNA database reduced reoffending by a stunning 43%. I think that perspective on public opinion and on the topic of DNA information being collected and stored is key to this discussion of how DNA information can be helpful to our society. So discouraging repeat offenders would be a good thing in so many different ways. It would save money on trials and prison stays, as well as all the monies, and not to mention the lives saved by people who choose not to commit crimes. So although sometimes public opinion about DNA databases might be swayed toward the negative from how the media reports about it and looks at it, a look at how DNA banks are managed might help improve this perception. So the University Hospital in Ghent, and this is in Belgium, is a facility where about 120,000 biospecimens are stored. This facility is for research and treatment of diseases. Biobank collections are open for collaborations to the international scientific community. One of the things they have there is they have SOPs, or standing operated procedures, in place for every process that takes place. So from sample collection to transporting samples, everything has a SOP so that they can make sure that all the samples and all the information is handled with care. They have software systems in place that ensure that anyone with authorization to access the DNA information can see how the sample was collected, what procedures and studies have been done with that DNA, and who has access to that information. So all of that can be looked at historically as well. And in addition, one of the things they do there is they have a separate advisory board. So the people making the decisions about safety and about how to process and use this DNA information is not just the people who are physically able to use it and hands-on. It's also people from outside sources that can lend a different perspective that aren't as close to the research and the study. DNA repositories can be managed in ways that allow for research while protecting privacy, and that's a huge piece of what needs to happen for us to move forward and DNA research to be able to continue and be useful. There are current laws that protect the privacy of a person's genetic information, but more work is obviously needed. This is an area, again, where there has to be a balance between the research being able to move forward and the DNA being collected in a safe way, because DNA is so unique, it can never really be completely anonymous. Now, another thing that needs to happen is, as citizens, we need to make sure that we're aware of the changing laws and how these laws affect our lives and our privacy. One way, again, that you can do this is by making the use of this database. There's a database at the National Human Genome Research Institute. And again, they have current laws listed, and they're organized by state. So you can look those up by your state and see what those current laws are. And they're continually updated so that we can see them as they change. So if you want more information, that's a great place to start. One interesting thing to think about when I was doing this research, I found that there's no current federal law prohibiting testing someone's DNA without their knowledge. I personally think that DNA banks and the ability to have these samples to further medical research and help solve crimes or help prove someone's innocence, I think it's a good thing. I think we have to make sure it's done correctly. And I think one of my main concerns is being sure that laws stay in place that protect us against discrimination when it comes to our DNA information and health coverage. But what's your opinion? What do you think about DNA banks? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and bye.